This egg is owned by the most powerful people in the world. It is more than a piece of jewelry. It is a symbol of power. And it is also the most expensive egg ever created on this planet. It was created by Peter Carl Fabergé, the most famous goldsmith of all time. A man who pushed the art of goldsmithing to perfection and touched the heavens. But the higher you climb, the harder the fall. This is the story of the name Fabergé. The story of the family began around the year 1685, when the French king Louis XIV abolished the law that allowed people to practice a faith other than Catholicism. At that time, the family was still called Favre. They were Protestants. They rejected the splendor and excess of the church, and because of that, they faced imprisonment, confiscation of property, and even the removal of their children. Carl Fabergé's great-grandfather had to act. The family fled first to Germany, then to the Baltic region, and finally to St. Petersburg in Russia. And it was there, in 1846, that a man was born who would change the history of luxury, Peter Carl Fabergé. He was born into the family of a goldsmith. His father, Gustave Fabergé, worked in St. Petersburg. They were not nobility, but an honest middle-class family. Thanks to hard work, they could afford something extraordinary, sending their son to study the craft across Europe, Germany, Paris, and Italy. Fabergé learned from the very best. In 1872, he returned. He was 26 years old and took over the family workshop in St. Petersburg. The workshop was successful, but the real turning point was still to come. In 1882, Fabergé participated in an arts and crafts exhibition in Moscow. Tsar Alexander III also walked through the exhibition. He saw everything: gold, diamonds, extravagance. And then he stopped at an unassuming display case. The objects looked old. The Tsar asked what period they were from, and the answer was that they were new. They had been created by Peter Carl Fabergé. They were so precise that even the Tsar was deceived. Appearing like originals from the 16th and 17th centuries. That was exceptional. The old techniques had been forgotten, no longer taught in schools. Someone had to rediscover them and restore them. That was the moment, the turning point. The Tsar remembered the name Fabergé. For 3 years, nothing happened. It seemed as if the Tsar had forgotten. He had not. In 1885, Easter was approaching, and the Tsar wanted to give a gift to his wife, Empress Maria Feodorovna, originally a Danish princess. A diamond necklace would not have surprised anyone. He wanted something different, something original, and he turned to Fabergé. Fabergé understood the task perfectly. He combined tradition with emotion. In Denmark, simple, playful gifts with surprises were common. In Russia, the egg symbolized new life. He created an egg plain on the outside, without ostentation, European in its subtlety. Fabergé did not create it to dazzle with gold. He created it to delight a woman who loved simplicity and surprise. The Empress expected nothing from the egg. Then she opened it. She was surprised and happy. She laughed. That was exactly what the Tsar wanted to see, and so the decision was made. Every year, I want a new egg, and each one must be different. The tradition of imperial Easter eggs was born. Fabergé received the title of court jeweler, and everything changed. Orders poured in. Everyone wanted what the Tsar had. Fabergé produced jewelry, snuff boxes, cutlery, umbrella handles, practically anything made of precious metals and stones. It was the greatest era of the Fabergé family. In total, he created 50 eggs for the imperial family, each one different, every single one unique. But while diamond eggs gleamed in palaces, ordinary people had nothing to eat. Poverty in Russia grew, and with it, anger. The revolution came. The imperial family was imprisoned and later executed by the Bolsheviks. The nobility had their property confiscated. Titles disappeared. Fabergé lost his workshops, his villa, and his wealth. He was labeled a symbol of the luxury of the old regime and fled to Switzerland. 2 years after his escape, with his last remaining strength, he opened a shop in London with his sons, then the capital of luxury. But the world had changed. Fabergé died in 1920 in Switzerland without wealth. The London business soon collapsed. Luxury lost its meaning after the First World War. Taste changed. The old world was over. After the revolution, Russia was broken, without money, without allies, and with warehouses full of treasures that had no value for the new regime. Jewelry, eggs, diamonds, art. The Bolsheviks needed cash, not beauty, not history, and so began the greatest luxury sell-off in history. Enter a man named Armand Hammer, an American businessman and one of the few people from the West with direct access to Lenin, not because he was a friend, but because he had what the Soviets needed: money, goods, and a way out of isolation. Hammer bought directly from the state. No auctions, no emotions, just lists and prices. A Fabergé egg sold for a few $1,000s, sometimes $3,000, $5,000, or $10,000 per piece. Worthless to the Soviets, an exotic dream for America. Hammer transported them to the United States and sold them to American millionaires, collectors and museums. There began the second life of the eggs. Back then, a Fabergé egg cost $5,000. Today, the same egg costs $30 to $70 million. A single egg today is worth more than an entire imperial palace was back then. The difference is time, story, and rarity. The eggs ended up in American museums, private collections, and vaults of people whose names you will never hear. And Fabergé was already dead. After Carl Fabergé's death, the family lost everything, including the name. The Fabergé brand was not protected. No one guarded it. No one had the strength to fight, and someone took advantage of that. Throughout the 20th century, the name Fabergé was sold as a label: perfumes, cosmetics, cheap goods. Then a giant arrived, Unilever, a massive corporation that bought the rights to the name Fabergé, not for history but for the sound of it. Fabergé meant luxury, even when it had nothing to do with eggs anymore. The Fabergé family had no chance. The name they built no longer belonged to them. And then, after years of confusion, disputes and misuse, the brand returned to jewelry. New owners, new business, a new era. Today's Fabergé produces luxury jewelry, draws on the aesthetics of the eggs, and works with history as legend. But this is no longer the house of Carl Fabergé. It is a brand inspired by his name. The difference is fundamental. Fabergé created eggs as gifts of love. The system turned them into investments, and the revolution turned them into commodities. Today they are symbols of power, symbols of wealth, and symbols of a world that disappeared. And that is exactly why they are so expensive. Fabergé lost everything, but his eggs survived the empire, the war, and the revolution. And today they still belong to those who rule the world.